Cubs with a tough loss today. They had for the second straight game against Colorado the lead and weren't able to hang on, and two really bad losses on this road trip as they try to hold on to their wild card spot down the stretch run. We're going to talk about that. If you're watching live, comment, tell me what you think about the game. We'll get into that as well, but not the type of performance that we all wanted to see. If you're here hanging at the Cubs baseball channel, join our roster. We want you to be part of our 40-man roster or our 26-man roster or playoff roster, and you can do that really easy. Like and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell so you know when we go live. And we're going to try to do this when we get the opportunity. And today, day game, one that it looked like early the Cubs were going to cruise. Didn't happen the way that we wanted, but we do want you here hanging out with us. All right, guys, I'm Mick Gillispie, and let's take a look at the box score and kind of get into what we got here after today's loss. James Taillon got the start, and Jamison in the game was good, and then all of a sudden in the fifth inning gave up the home runs. Now, Cubs got an early lead. They staked him to the early advantage. And Bellinger, again, with another RBI, 90 now. He's gotten just so many big hits for the Cubs here lately. Suzuki and Swanson all driving in runs, and it was a 3-0 lead. But things kind of came unraveled in the fifth inning. And, after a 2-run homer, tied the game at 3, a ball was hit to Ian Happ, and he dropped it, and then another home run, and all of a sudden the Cubs were down and really never got off the mat. Look, Justin, I'm with you, man. Super frustrating series for so many reasons. First off, you had the lead in all 3 games, and when you have the lead and you're the better team, you've got to figure out how to win the game, and that's not obviously the way that things went. And I get it. Look, it's a big league team, and the Rockies, they finally have their guy Chris Bryant back. They're paying a lot of money for him, but he's been hurt a lot. He hasn't played a bunch, but you know what? Homered again today. That's back-to-back games where KB's homered. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about Chris Bryant. I saw him come up. Mike Bryant, great guy. It's good to see him back out there. I just wish that he was doing this against somebody else other than the Cubs, And it was weird seeing him hit a home run today in that green Colorado license plate uniform that they're wearing. They're pretty cool. But KB homered again today, right? But let's talk about the problems that I think that the Cubs are having right now. First off is base running. They got to do a better job with the base running. It's just like every time they're stealing bases or trying, they're getting thrown out. And this year in Major League Baseball, it's the easiest it's ever been to steal bases. They've got to get there better. They've got to do a better job of reading pitchers, getting jumps, and getting to second base. If they're going to take an extra base, they need to get there. Joe Madden used to talk about being aggressive and not being afraid to make a mistake, but being smart and aggressive. When you're constantly getting thrown out on the bases, you're taking the bat out of someone else's hands, or you're taking an opportunity away from them to drive you in. Obviously today, more bad base running, more getting thrown out on the bases. I've kind of been really excited about what Pete Crow-Armstrong could do on the bases, but he hasn't been any better. He's been out on the bases, and maybe some growing pains for Hollywood at the plate and in the bases. He's made some great plays in the outfield, but today, you lost one in the sun, and it dropped. Just thankfully that didn't really cost the Cubs like Ian Happ's ball that he dropped and turned into a home run. So, those are things that you really can't have happen. Jeff says PCA was about to hit a grand slam, but Rossi overmanaged yet again. Yeah, they took Hollywood out and they brought in Gomes, and he popped out, and then Morel did the same thing, and that was kind of in the late innings. I think that was the 8th inning. That was when I realized that they were out of chances. I don't know if it's overmanaging or not. I know that a lot of you guys are fed up with David Ross, and what I'll say is what I've found over the years is that Cubs fans are smart. And there's a reason why Cubs fans feel this way. And people were asking me, like, well, what about Joe Madden? Were Cubs fans frustrated with Joe Madden? I really don't think so, up until maybe, the end of the Joe Madden era, where sometimes it didn't feel like the team played very hard. But I mean, back when the Cubs were coming up in 2015 and 2016, people were pretty happy with the direction of the team. So, I don't know. I think that Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to get some big hits down the stretch here. I'm glad that they're giving him a chance. You saw what he can do in the field last night. It's a lot of pressure, though. I mean, but the only way you're going to get past that is to be out on the field. It's just that all these games are really magnified because they count for so much. And we'll take a look at the standings here in a second. VW Taco, I'm guessing that's West Virginia, but maybe it's a VW bus. September swoon, I don't think so. I just think this is just a tough series on the road. And I mean, I think this is kind of part of the way that when you play baseball and you're trying to win games day in and day out, that it happens like this, that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And so, that's, you just don't want to get the lead early and then drop fly balls and then get thrown out on the bases. They've got to be more focused and try to play mistake-free baseball. Jameson Taillon is Jameson Taillon. The way that he pitched against Arizona and the Yankees are really an anomaly. Most of the time, they're games like this where he gives up home runs and gives up runs, and you're going to have to overcome that. And so when the ball's hitting the air and it's an easy out, you got to catch it. And I know the sun was tough today, but these are the games where you got to make plays and you got to catch the ball. The other thing too is, think about it. Dansby Swanson hit one off the top of the wall. If that's a home run, maybe it's a different game. You score more. And, it's just some breaks that happen too. Bernie saying, talking about Pete Crow-Armstrong being a rookie. Yeah, he is a rookie and he's going to do things that rookies do. I just got a feeling that when he kind of gets comfortable, it looks to me a little bit like he's still getting adjusted. When he really gets comfortable, you guys are going to love what he's able to add to the table. And I think that the spark that the Cubs wanted to get from having him is going to come. Tomorrow's an off day, probably a good time to take an off day, because as bad as it is losing back-to-back to Colorado, tomorrow starts, the off day, and then Friday starts that huge series against Arizona. And Friday, you got your guy that's fighting for the Cy Young Award out on the mound, Justin Steele. So you hope that he's able to go out there and continue the success that he's had, 16-3 this year and a 2.49 ERA. I mean, he's amongst the league leaders in a lot of the big time categories. I think he's the front runner. I don't care what Vegas says. I think he's the front runner for the Cy Young Award, and that we're going to find out really soon that he's a guy who's I think he's going to win it. And I think that he's got another great opportunity, which is something that we've seen him do nothing but take advantage of, to pitch in a game that matters. All right, here's the updated standings in the wild card. And it's not all bad. Look, it's not all bad. That's why I got to pull this up and show you, because I know after these two losses, knowing that there's some heavy competition coming, that you feel like it's over. But the Cubs, like, it isn't a September swoon. It's just a couple games on the road in the big leagues. But Phillies 3.5, Cubs with 2 straight losses, now a game and a half better than Arizona. A lot of games to take place tonight, so those could change some. But Cincinnati and Miami and San Francisco aren't going to catch the Cubs today. So that's the good news. And it's going to be like this for the rest of the postseason. I mean, the regular season, which feels like a postseason, that down the stretch, these games are all going to matter. And for the Cubs, they've just got to keep going out there and producing and taking care of business. But look at all those teams. I'll tell you something to keep an eye on, is that the Cubs have the best run differential of any of the teams, even Philadelphia, that are fighting and vying for that last playoff spot, which is, to me, a real sign of how this team's been this year. Let's look at the schedule. And I know that we talked about this, but the Cubs are see if I can pull it up here fast. I have to back out of this. Anyway, the Cubs are playing after tomorrow's off day. They're going to head to Arizona and probably head there now, really, being in Colorado. They'll have an off day, and then, it'll be time to kind of start to think about this Diamondback series. And, here it is. You win this series, and you can forget about all the things that you didn't like about losing to Colorado. But huge games. We've said that a lot because all these games really have been really important to the Cubs in their playoff race. But 8:40 Central on Friday, 7:10 on Saturday, and then 6:10 on Sunday off, and then Pirates and a chance to repay the Rockies to finish up the schedule at Wrigley Field, and then the tough games in Atlanta and then Milwaukee. Mad Hat says, hey, I don't put any stock in run differential. It all means you've been on the winning side of more blowouts than the losing side. Yeah, it could be, but it also shows that, that you're in a lot of close games too. I mean, if you're on the other side of that and you're giving up a lot of runs, I'm not a big analytics person. You guys probably know that. And if you don't, watch the podcast I do with Tim Wilkin. That's one of the things that we wanted to get together on, is just, we think that analytics are important, but they're not the be all end all of baseball. Right. And that's the same thing with stats. I mean, humans play these games, and you got to go out there and make plays. And the players that you want on your team are the guys that in the clutch situation make the big plays or make the big pitches. And the ones that you don't want are the ones that, hey, maybe they put up good stats, but they're not winners. Right. So, it's kind of the bottom line. All right, a couple more, and then we'll call it quits today. They got to get their together. Hey, look, I'm with you. Look, I no doubt. And let me put this up too, kind of a follow-up from Knowledge Untamed. He said, I'm not happy with Tauchman not leading off. He sets the pace. PCA was here to be a defensive sub, pinch hit, pinch run. Look, I don't know what the answer is, because I want to see Pete Crow-Armstrong play, because I know he's a good player and I know he can be a spark. And I think that they felt like Tauchman was kind of, cooling off a little bit. I don't know. I just, you know what? That's the tough part about managing every day. But Tauchman's been one of the reasons that they've had success this year. I mean, he's been one of those guys, when you put him in there, you find a way to win. So I'm not arguing. I don't know. I can tell that Pete Crow-Armstrong's still kind of trying to get his feet under him. But he follows up and says Morel leading off was a bad move. Yeah, I feel like Morel and Patrick Wisdom are kind of the same type of player. They're like the all or nothing guys, and they'll do some really big things for you some, but then, they'll also, there's some deficiencies in their game. I think when Hollywood Pete kind of gets comfortable and isn't like starstruck about being there or trying to impress his teammates or comfortable, he's going to do a lot of things you guys are going to like. I really do believe that, but I think we're kind of not there yet. And, like Edron says, Cubs defense, base running, free walks, hit by pitches, all of that stuff it's exactly what my point is. You just can't make mistakes like that in these games, because teams like Colorado, I mean, they got Chris Bryant on their team. They're going to beat the Cubs. It's just they're going to want to beat Arizona. They're going to want to beat the Reds. I mean, they're going to want to play spoiler. They're a team that hasn't given up on the season yet, even though they're not going to make the playoffs. So, anyway, let me find one more here. Yeah, I'm with you on Tauchman. He's a good one too. Robert says, love PCA, but not ready next year. That's what they've got to figure out, or just do what they said they were going to do. Use him for pinch running and defense, and maybe pinch hit him some. I mean, you got to get him in the game, but I'm not saying that he's got to be the starter. But I don't know. Like that's kind of out of my range. I mean, the worst thing though is when you call up these guys and they don't get in at all, and you don't figure out a way to get them kind of, where they're sitting on the bench the whole time and not involved at all. So, but it's only 2 games, and you go to Arizona starting on Friday, and you just get back on track in Arizona, a couple of days off, bounce right back and take care of business against Arizona. And you got the right guy on the mound in Justin Steele. So you turn to Justin Steele and you feel good about that. And I think that's kind of the direction that you in a series that matters a lot like that one does, that you want to go, where you put out the ace of your staff. So, all right, well, look, I've got a game to call here. If you guys want to watch it, if you have the MLB app, watch the Smokies game. You'll be able to listen to my play-by-play. I'll give you my Harry Carey impression tonight. And I've got an interview for the channel tomorrow that you guys will know first about. I talked with Bruce Miles, who wrote a book with Jesse Rogers. It's a really cool Cubs book. It's called The Franchise. And we talk about like the 84 playoffs and some of the Cubs managers, and he tells some stories that were in the book, and it'll be a fun video. And then I'm going to talk to Tony Andracki from Marquee, and that'll be posted tomorrow. So you get a couple of off day things as well, but it's not the end of the world. It stinks because the Cubs have played just crappy the last couple of days, but I think they're going to be all right. Thanks for being here on our little quick post game show, and make sure if you're not already, be part of the channel. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks, guys.